From Carolla One Studios and Gina's house and Bryan's house, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, American author and neuroscientist Sam Harris. With Gina Grad on news and Bald Bryan on sound effects, and now, before the show, the staff lined up to smell the steak and martini on his breath. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. A choice, but if you get on a mandate, you get it on. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for telling a friend. We love when you share the show, right, Gina Grad?
That's right.
Handball, Bryan.
Balak!
Oh, that's interesting that you brought up Balak. I was thinking about, I've said this for 20 some odd years on started saying it on Loveline, was kind of thinking about it on the flight from a Southwest flight from Houston a couple days back, which is, and no one, I think people think I'm kidding about many of the things I'm saying, like, you know, dogs that sniff out venereal diseases or cancers, or let's use crows to attack crows or to service or whatever. And they go, but I'm deadly serious about everything I speak about. Now, sometimes it's humorous because it sounds pretty humorous sometimes, but I really mean it. I have been saying for 25 years, speaking of Balak, which is for every one racist person who's actually discriminating against people, it could be black, Hispanic, whatever, gay, whatever that is, whoever that person is, who is not letting you get a job, or, you know, being, you know, you ask for directions and they shrug their shoulders and walk away, even though they know the right direction. For every one of those people, there's about 9 to 15 white people who feel guilty and will work harder trying to help person of color so as not to come across as racist.
You're one of them.
I'm one of them. We're all that way. We have a little different relationship with the formerly oppressed, and we don't want to exacerbate things and don't want to come across as racist. And I always think about it, and I experienced it on the airplane, or actually Chris Maxipada did. And I was also thinking of a situation. Picture a situation like a few weeks ago, there was that blue-eyed, blonde-haired salon owner who opened up her salon in Texas, and she had the black male judge sort of dress her down and tell her that she owed the community an apology, and said, if you won't do it, I'm going to put you in jail. Okay. Let's reverse the roles. Let's have a blue-eyed male judge, a blonde male judge telling a black female salon owner, a black small business owner, if you don't apologize, I'm going to put you behind bars. They couldn't have gotten away with it. They wouldn't have gotten away with it. We would be outraged, right? We'd say this is right. This is oppression. This is racism. Imagine just a white dude up on that stand telling a black female small business owner, you apologize or I'm going to incarcerate you. Well, he couldn't have done it. And I would argue he wouldn't have done it. I think he would understand the optics of that.
I would look, yeah. So a lot of people, yeah, of course.
Right. And so if he was like back and he was hanging out with Rusty, his bailiff, and he said, you know what I'm going to do? This is, let's pick the guy. Let's pick Tom Bergeron. He's white.
Very.
All right, so let's take...
And how?
He's backstage, and he's saying to Rusty the bailiff, you know what I'm going to do to that middle-aged, black, female small business owner who runs a salon? I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to tell her she owes her community an apology, and if she doesn't apologize, I'm going to put her in the hoosegow. I'm going to lock her up. Now, Rusty would tap Tom Bergeron on the shoulder and go, you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
you don't
I know
know.
this is going to end.
This is not, the optics are going to be horrible. Change your tack, change your position, figure out something, go out there and find her or do whatever, but be careful because they will be watching and you will be taken out into the Twitter sphere and flogged. So Maxipada, I don't know, did he just leave? I was talking to you about you, so don't go anywhere.
Sorry.
We were on the airplane from Houston, and look, I love it. The airports are basically empty.
Yeah.
The plane.
It's a dream.
Were the middle seats all open?
Middle seats are all open. Plane's about 2/3 to half full. And Mike and I walked right in, sat in an exit row, had a middle seat in between us, and all was good in the world. And Maxipada sat directly in front of me. And it was like, well, this is good. We have our run of the plane. It's the first time in a long time you've seen 3 seats open and someone laying across it like a bed.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Oh, the good old days.
And, so we were in the end of the A boarding group. We're like 44A, 46A. We just got on. And Mike and I found our seat, and Maxipada found his seat. And I thought, oh, this is good. I got Mike over here. I got Maxipada in front of me. I was going to ask Maxipada some unprepared business and some stuff like that. And then at some point, a gentleman of color, probably 30, just walked up to Maxipada and said, hey, that's my seat. Get out. And
On Southwest?
yeah. And I was
Yeah.
kind of like, and he wasn't like, excuse me, could you pass the Grey Poupon? At least as far as I was not
He was
paying.
like, beat it.
Kind of just walked up, said, that's my seat. And I didn't say much else.
Had he set his stuff down and gone to the bathroom or something?
What did he say to you? First, just what did he say?
Oh, he says he said, "Hey, you're in my seat," and then he kind of motions me to get up and.
But
and
it
move.
wasn't being nice about it.
No.
Right.
he wasn't.
Okay. So what I'm
Lack of
saying,
tact.
okay, he had put a water bottle on the seat and then went to the bathroom or did whatever, which is something. I don't know what the rules are exactly on Southwest. Like, I don't know if you can claim a seat in the name of Spain with half a Sparklets bottle. But either way, that was his seat. Now, it didn't really matter because the plane was sort of half empty and there were rows that were just wide open in the back and stuff. And I would say, but you guys, be honest, not you, Dawson. I already know what your answers are. If I had done that and I had seen a young man of color sitting in my seat, I'd probably go, I'll just sit 2 rows back or whatever. I probably wouldn't say clear out because
You certainly wouldn't say it like he said it.
Right. I would not like the way it was perceived. Now, if there's some reason why I needed that seat or someone was joining me or something, I'd say, sorry, I know it sounds stupid, but blah, 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 blah. But I wouldn't just walk up and go, hey, clear it out, which he did. And my argument is he also...
You'd go, excuse me, can I please have that water bottle?
Right. That's up your ass now. So I'm saying, and I also wonder, and we'll never know, but the point is if that guy who came up to Maxipada had red hair and freckles and looked like a young Danny Bonaducci, Maxipada may have been more apt to say, hey, man, this is Southwest. Like, I just sat down. But instead, you kind of go, I don't want this person to perceive this as this kind of interaction.
Well, and Chris doesn't exactly look like the poster child for the Aryan Brotherhood.
No, but
further complicate things.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is it doesn't seem like much, but he who told you to clear out didn't say excuse me or sorry or anything. He just went, my seat, out.
Yeah,
As if I was supposed to know.
Right.
That was curt. Also, important information, point of information for Chris. Adam and August were in an exit row. Oftentimes the Southwest, they have 2 in a row. Were you sitting in an exit row?
I ended up in exit row, but the seat in front of Adam was not an exit row.
Okay.
You'd want that seat.
Again, I don't know why he'd want that.
Me neither.
If it
He
was
didn't
an
know
exit row, I
anybody
could see
around
that's like
him.
a high demand seat, but
Later on, I got up, walked to the back of the plane to use the restroom, and there were many open rows. Like, that's the whole point. He could have just went, hey, you snooze, you lose. I mean, or whatever, but he walked in and said, get out. And just something to think about with a little bit of, for every For every Klansman out there,
Right.
they're 15 to 20 Maxipadas aiming to please. All right, we have.
Can I just say something pertaining to your the judge thing? I agree with you 100%. I think you're 100% right. It's a sad referendum on our society's relationship to authority, because it really shouldn't matter if the judge is black or white, or if the plaintiff is black or the defendant is black, or it doesn't matter. He's in a position of authority. He is a judge. He has worked his way up to being one who has been deemed to judge the law, judge your guilt or innocence, and assign you a sentence if necessary. Whether or not he admonishes you or makes you apologize or wear a sign that says, blah, 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 whatever creative punishments are, is irrespective of the fact that he's a judge. Like, it shouldn't matter if it's black or white or reversed or any color.
Yeah, but that, if I'm hearing your point correctly, that seems like such a huge part of our judicial system. Like, if you don't feel remorse, then you're staying in jail.
Well,
so everybody wants the apology.
Everything is just optics now, and if you tried to pull that on a black woman who was trying to run a business, I mean, the news media would take you out to the woodshed and destroy you.
He probably wouldn't be a judge for very long, very much longer.
Rob Hone is on hold. His business is High Side. He's a barber, has a barbershop in Petaluma, California. Petaluma is up north, but how far?
Sonoma
Keeps going,
County.
Right? Sonoma County?
It's in Sonoma County. Yeah.
Okay. It was always Petaluma when I was younger was kind of known as a little crunchy and kind of hips, where the pot was grown and where the freer people want to go hang out. At least when I was like in high school.
I could be wrong. Could be Santa Rosa County, but they'll correct me. Our guest will obviously correct me.
Hey, Rob.
Hello, gentlemen. Hello, Adam.
Good. So tell us your story. Chris, I think you reached out to Chris, or Chris reached out to you, but it's a sort of pertinent news story. So give us a little background.
Yeah. So I reached out to Chris. Well, we've been talking about the absurdity in the barbershop for the past, this is our 4th week reopen. And then it occurred to the other barber and I was like, Ace Man would love this story. It's so ridiculous. So when the world ended, we shut down. And there's this county order that says no one can be open, essential, non-essential, whatever. So we closed the barbershop, and the county order, I was like, well, is this even law anyways? Is this even a legitimate law? But it expires on May 3rd. Okay, well, May 4th, then we go back to work. We're not, there's this idea that I'm supposed to pay attention every day to know when, like, we're on phase 2.1 or whatever. So we just plan on going back to work after the May 3rd deadline expired. And even considering that, the order that the county gave out, I still was like, this doesn't say no barbershops. I don't understand. Like, I'm in here every day cutting military, law enforcement, these people that jobs are essential. Grooming is an essential component of sanitation and cleanliness.
Not for Adam, no.
Not for me, but yes. No, I look, you're talking to a guy I went to Houston and got a haircut. I literally just came back from Houston because I wanted to get a hair. I shit you not. I did 4 shows. I dedicated all the money to the food bank and the staff at the Improv, and I did not come home with a penny. Most or much of my motivation for going to Houston was to get a haircut and to get a steak. The things you can't get here for no good reason. And the barbershop, when the dust settles on this whole shit show, the 2 things that will be most vexing to me are sunning yourself on the beach and the barbershops. Mm-hmm. I understand crowded churches and I understand the subway. The barbershop doesn't make sense to me. And in all the places that reopened, everyone just came in and got a fucking haircut and went home. So what's the big whoop? And, someone said to me the other day, is there anyone you know who's got this? Is there anyone? I kept saying, do I know anyone? Do I know anyone? Do I know anyone? And the answer is Bean, of Kevin and Bean. Bean Baxter got it. He followed all the rules and he stayed at home. And he's the only friend who got it. No one from the barbershop. Sorry. So tell us your story.
Yeah, so we reopen. We go, it's time to go back to work on May 4th, May 5th. So May 5th is a Tuesday. We reopen. Nothing happens the whole first week, and everyone's reaching out to this like, how are you allowed to be open? I'm like, well, I don't understand why I have to make some argument I should be allowed to be open. I don't keep in track of what the update every day is. The order expired the 3rd, which we didn't fall under anyway. Then, of course, they extended it indefinitely. So the whole first week we're open, nothing happens. Everyone comes in here, cops in and out of here, fire in and out of here, getting haircuts. We're just back to normal. I don't understand. I'm not part of this group of people who I now call the infected, who just like look at their little phone all day to tell them what they're allowed to do today. I don't understand. So I'm just busy going to work. So we open the 5th or whatever. We're open for a week. Nothing happens. Well, the following Tuesday, now someone caught wind of this, and I kind of know there's some loud people in town that don't like me or whatever, so now law enforcement shows up. Law enforcement shows up on Tuesday. 2 uniform officers come in here, sir, I'm happy to ask you to close your business. Thank you, but no thank you. Sir, can you step outside and talk to us? No, thank you. I'm busy. I have clients. Sir, I have to order you to close your business. No, thank you. We're busy. We're doing work here. Is there some justification? And this is the thing, Adam. It's not my job to create some compelling legal case that I should be allowed to be open. I just am open. If you disagree and think I fall under some absurd county order or so-and-so said you can't be open, well, then you can mount that legal case against me and we can figure it out in court. But you have a heavy burden. So the cops come in Tuesday, they come back Wednesday, and they say the same thing. Sir, you have to close your business. I don't understand why to these officers. And there's sort of an understanding of the absurdity on their side.
Yes.
So they come back again, and this time, sir, last thing we're gonna have to do is issue you a citation. I said, well, then just don't issue me the citation. It's that simple. So the last thing we want to do is cite a small business. Okay, well then don't cite a small business. I'm just trying to feed my family here. We got barbers here with kids, so they get me the citation. I now have a court date for my citation. That's a misdemeanor. It's ridiculous. It's like, why are these people being let out of prisons? I'm just trying to cut hair in here, and LMPD is coming in. So now I get a cease and desist letter from the city, and then one from the county, and then I got the city manager calling my landlords, trying to pressure them to take legal action to get me out. Why are these people bothering me?
Look, I've said it many times. If you pay your taxes and you're generally a good citizen, you get a fucking target on your back in California. If you want to not pay taxes, live on the streets, defecate where you will, or be incarcerated, then you're essentially they look the other way. You're easy because you're visible and you're out there, and you're also sending a dangerous message to everyone around you, which is it's not that fucking dangerous. But that's the new world order. And what the government is doing and what the governor's doing or the mayor's doing or whatever, I'm not that. They're just doing what they do. I have said a million times, you put beavers on the roof of the Empire State Building, they'll start looking for logs to build a dam. They're just doing what they're doing. Who are the pussies that drop the dime? Who are the pussies that are on
What's
the
in
internet?
it for you?
Who is this new brand? And by the way, I used to think I hated pussy whipped guys. These guys are pussy indoctrinated. They're just a batch of fucking pussies. Yes. And you know what they do? It's pussy shaming. It pussy shames them because when I get on a plane and I go to fucking Texas and I have a martini and a steak and get a fucking haircut and half a rub and tug and come home and nothing happened, they are shamed. They actually hope something happens to me because they're cowering in a fucking fetal position in their fucking apartment and we're defying them. See, we're essentially shaming them because we're saying, hey, pussy, I'm living my life. And they don't like it. When they feel shame, they lash out. And that's what's going on.
No, they don't like it. And it's people that think that they were in charge. It's this kind of gaggle of people, these like kind of socialites and whomever, that are like, we're the ones that know the people on the inside. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's like, they all thought that they were in charge of all of us. So these people started calling. So when this all happened, so I get cited on a Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday, and the following day, there's some local, so whenever people are publicly talking about us, it gets brought to our attention. There's some local, like kind of, he's like a foodie, little like local celebrity kind of guy. And he starts going on to the personal pages of other barbers that work here and citing from the law they call it, right?
What a fucking colossal pussy. I know he's a foodie. I already know he's a pussy, but all right, go ahead.
Listen to this. So he's citing from the county order. So the whole time, I'm like, this county order is bullshit, number one. Two, it doesn't say barbershops. This is nail salons and hair salons. So why are you coming after me? It doesn't say barbershops in the order. Well, what happens is this guy is now citing from the law that's from the county order that says barbershops. And I go, well, that's weird. As I read the order, because the police officers brought it to me, and I have a background in law, I have a degree in law. I looked at the order. It doesn't say barbershops. If the order was legitimate, right? Well, so this person starts posting quotes from the law, citations that says barbershops. And I go, that's weird. It didn't say barbershops in the order. So I typed the text into I put the text into Google. Where's he getting this language in the order that says no barbershops? And it comes up from the county website. And it's an amendment to the county order from May 14th that adds the word barbershops. So my citation is from the 13th. So someone took the time, the county who's really busy looking at COVID graphs and whatever, took the time to go change the wording in the county order to add the word barbershops the day after I was cited. And now some little socialite, whatever's running around using those words to call me a criminal. The situation's just ridiculous.
Well, the problem that you have here, I think, is that anytime anyone's had a problem, an argument with a neighbor, think about all the arguments with the neighbor. Eventually, it's not about whatever it is you guys were arguing about. It just sort of becomes Hatfields and McCoys. And that's fine. It's not something you'd wish upon anybody, but it's fine with the neighbor. It's not fine with the government.
Right.
And I have told people, I had a problem in front of old property of mine. There was a big drainage problem. This big lake gathered up. I brought it up before, but it'd been a while. So it was like the city had planned it. The street dipped. When it rained hard, the sewer backed up, and it made a big lake. I went to the city and said, hey, can you fix this lake? They said, it's not our business. That's your property. I said, fine. I consulted with a drainage engineer. I had to pay him like $1,200. He came, he looked at the problem. He drew up a schematic, a plan of how to fix the problem. I then, because I have a building background, took my guys at a cost of over $1,000 to me and implemented what this drainage expert said to do. I then did that. It then worked perfectly. The city then slapped me with an ordinance that said, this is not permitted work. You had no business to do it. Tear it down. And I said, your drain wasn't effective. This drain is effective. I have a certified drainage expert who drew me a plan. Why don't we wait till it rains and see how effective it is? Well, it rained buckets a few weeks later, and it was 100% effective, just as the guy had planned. I heard nothing from the city till about 3 months later when I got another summons saying, tear it out or we'll tear it out. I then said, it's effective. It's on my property. I've solved the problem at my own expense, and it solved the lake that had been built up in the road that everyone was splashing through that is your highway. And they kept saying, if you don't tear it out, we're going to fine you. And I was like, what are you trying to do at this point, city? Are you trying to solve a problem? Are you punishing me because I defied you by fixing a fucking problem at my own expense? What kind of a relationship is this, dicks? I pay fucking taxes and I fix your fucking problem. And I told them, hey, dicks, I'll take a fucking sledgehammer and destroy it, and then you'll have a lake. Is that the way you want to go? Because I don't fucking give a shit, you retards. This is the problem. The city has turned. The government has turned. We're now fucking subject. Fuck you. We don't work for you.
Adam, and one thing that came up to me.
Other than that, I got nothing to say about it.
So, Adam, this hit me like a ton of bricks. As I was reading through my cease and desist letter from the city of Petaluma, right? Who has tons of time on their hands, apparently, to bother a small business. So I'm a barber in town. I know everyone in town. I'm a bartender in town. I cannot go anywhere without running into people I know or people that we go to the same businesses and know each other. And I'm reading the cease and desist letter, and I'm looking at the names of all the city council and all the city planner and all these people, and it just occurs to me, who the fuck are these people? Like,
I don't know.
Are these people go to our businesses and support our town? Like, who put these people in charge? Do they represent the interests of the barbers and the restaurants who are closing? I can look out my barbershop window. I see 2 restaurants closed forever. There's businesses shuttering every day. Is the city like helping us or trying to like help us get back to normal? Or who do they serve? I don't understand.
Well, look. Oh, Chris Maxipada has the letter I wrote the fucking city in February.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I hope
bitch.
I hope somebody in your office has a sense to realize that this has completely solved a huge and ongoing problem. The lake that formerly formed in that dip in the road is now 100% drained during the heaviest rainstorms. Why would you brainiacs want to undo a problem that was fixed 100%? I don't care anymore. I'll sledgehammer out the work I did and replace the drain, and you guys can enjoy a lake at that dip next time it rains. This was not something I, quote, cooked up in my garage. This was professionally engineered by a drainage expert. But if you want me to take a sledgehammer and put it back to the way it didn't work, I'd be happy to do it. Although it frightens me to live in a city where such conclusions are drawn. Good luck. I pray we never talk about this subject again.
Fucking pussy dicks. And who knows, by the way, they don't send you a fruit basket or an apology letter. They may just slap another permit and, you know, whatever. It's out of control. And you people don't understand what they're asking for. They're fucking getting on a very slippery, deadly ground here. They're going to cause good people to sort of rise up. And there's a lot of people that are getting to that point, and it's not something we should look forward to. They're overstepping their boundaries. They're drunk with fucking power. Yes.
I think we should look forward to, I think that these people, there seems to be this notion that the dust is going to settle and that we're going to go back to a world where they're in charge and they bother people like you with their chicken shit, right? Or they bother people like me. But I think it's important to take this opportunity to say, no, what our new normal is, we don't put up with this shit anymore. Like, why are you bothering businesses? Why are you bothering you? Like, I think, people are reaching out to me like with nothing but support. So I think we need to continue that support and make the cities and the people that are in charge and the city officials be accountable to the people that live in them.
Well, they're also idiots. They shouldn't be telling you what to do. But okay, is there a big problem in Petaluma with coronavirus?
No, not that I know of, no.
Have you you've been open for how long now, sort of in defiance of the ordinance?
Yeah, I'm not in defiance. I don't really see the ordinance as law. But we opened on the 5th, I think. So what are we in today? Like the 25th? Yeah, this is our 4th week reopened. It's been busy, tons of support, but it's exhausting. My kids are, my daycare has been compromised. People are calling, complaining about me everywhere. It's just this insane clusterfuck for no reason.
Oh my God!
People are just like, because
it's all just a fucking waste.
To this new world where I have to obey the TV every 2 seconds.
I'm sorry, dude, Rob. Do you have a question, Brian?
Yeah, Rob, did you ever...
Sorry, you broke up there for a minute.
Oh, can you hear me? Am I okay? Yeah, good?
Yeah.
Rob, did you ever
I can hear you, Brian.
Did you ever alter your business, or not your business, but like your practices, or I don't know, limit the number of people? When you were defying this order, did you go out of your way to make any changes to the business?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And fortunately for us, we only have 3 stations and they're super spaced apart. And those of anyone listening who's a barber or a cosmetologist knows that the sanitation requirements from the California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology are extensive. We adhere to those standards. So is it like, am I forcing people to am I taping out with blue tape where you're allowed to walk in the barbershop? No, I mean, we put up a sign early on to comply with the mask thing, which kind of works, doesn't work. It's like, we're trying to kind of work with everyone in whatever capacity we can to make sense of all this.
Well, barbershops, if you picture barbershops, the chair, and I know Rob has to get back to his customers, the chairs are always 6 foot plus apart anyway, and it's a sterile environment. Everything's dipped in alcohol and whatever, because it was that way pre-coronavirus because of the business they serve. It's called the High Side in Petaluma. Go there and leave a big fat tip to Rob Hone and the other people that he employs over there. God bless you.
Thank you, Adam.
Hero. I love what you're doing. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for joining us. Our pleasure. All right. Well, that's where we're at, everybody. And there's a lot of theater here. It's very random. As I said, Bean got it, and we all just went to Texas and back and didn't. And by the way, I was on stage with Dan Crenshaw. We were just shaking people's hands. I was just shaking people's hands. After the matinee show, we all went to a brew pub in place. Brew pub is called like Walking Stick or something. A cool Texas new brew pub. Sat indoors. Sat across from Senator was it Representative Congressman Crenshaw. Sat with his wife. Took his eye patch and his glasses off. I was looking at his crazy glass eye with the leaf gold in the middle of it. But he had a few of his friends over, and his wife had a few of her friends over, and me and August just sat there. We all sat at a long table and drank fresh-made micro brew beer and enjoyed the bejesus out of it.
So when's Natalia letting you back in the house?
I am glad you brought up Natalia, because I talked to Drew and I talked to you guys about it. I talked to society about the death of math, and probability, which was something I was talking to Drew about earlier in the day, which is, so Natalia comes back. She shot out of a cannon. She wants the social distancing and the wiping, the spraying on the bag and all the ritualistic stuff, all the stuff Bean did that didn't save him. And
she was out of town, right?
She was in Florida for 10 days and flying first class. Anyway, it's a science. So she's leaving last night. She's heading out. It's sort of dusky time at 6:37 in the evening. And she says to me, I'm going on a ride with my friend, a bike ride, and we're going to stay 6 feet apart, which they don't. I don't give a shit. So I said, go ahead. But thinking, I'm not a worrier as a parent, but as somebody who was there literally standing in the driveway when Sonny fractured his skull riding his bike and was dropped off to me as his head is, the big swelling and, in and out of consciousness and stuff. I do have some feelings about helmets and bikes. Again, Sonny literally almost died because he whacked his head on the concrete a couple years ago, and it was in intensive care and so on and so forth. So when Natalia was leaving last night, I said, hey, put on a helmet, because she's a bit of a daredevil. And there's like some hills, and she'll go zooming on you. And we have 3 or 4 different size helmets that are all sort of hanging up on the rack next to the bike. And she said, oh, come on, Dad. And I said, come on now, put a helmet on. And she went, I don't need a helmet. And we had an argument about a helmet. Now, percentage chances of her getting COVID-19 and being affected or dying by it is 0%. Number one killer, rich white girls, is probably riding a mountain bike. So statistically, me telling her put a helmet on makes perfect sense. But she's the number one cheerleader for social distancing and kicking your shoes off and spraying bags down with alcohol compounds, but fought vehemently about putting a helmet on, which to me is the death of math. Statistically, this is what's going to get her. Now, I won the argument, made her put on the helmet, but one thing she's very concerned about poses no threat to her. The other does have a statistical threat to her, which is pretty high for, again, her age and her tax bracket and where she lives and so on and so forth. And she had no thoughts about it and no concerns. That's where we're at. I'll forgive her because she's young. It's the 46-year-old males who think that way. Those are the guys who are bugging the shit out of me. All right, let me hit Raycon, working from home, working on your fitness, makes what you listen to very important these days. And sometimes the kids are making a lot of noise in the next room, or they're running the TV too loud. Before dropping hundreds on a pair of wireless earbuds, check out Raycon. About half the price of other premium wireless earbuds. And also, some people leave these things on airplanes. You lose these things. Like, why are you spending so much on your earbuds? The sound is amazing. The newest model, everyday E25 earbuds. 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass and more compact design, and more noise isolating fit. They fit nice. They work great. I use them. My son is in love with these things. They're Raycon, stylish and discreet. No dangling wires or stems either. And It's co-founded by Ray J. What about it, Dawson?
Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/Adam. That's buyraycon.com/Adam. For 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. Buyraycon.com/Adam.
So, people will say to me, hey, douchey McDoucheberg, why are you going against everything? Like, why aren't you listening? Why aren't you doing what they're telling you to do? I generally don't listen, but also they've been telling us to do a lot of shit that was wrong. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I'll play you a clip, but think about, let's forget about the estimates that are coming out of England and flattening the curve and all sorts of things. But let's just think about the subject of ventilators. Remember ventilators? Was a big deal. We don't have enough. We need them.
Car manufacturers stopped manufacturing cars to make ventilators.
We need ventilators, and we needed them yesterday, and the government has failed, and now we're caught without them. And I'll play you a Andrew Cuomo clip from a few months ago, a few weeks ago. But this is where we were. Now, look, he thought what he thought when he thought it. I'm not blaming him. He was told we need ventilators. So here's a ventilator clip.
And at the rate they are going, it is not happening. FEMA says we're sending 400 ventilators. Really? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators.
I'm guessing he means 4,000. Maybe it's the death of math. But either way, there's going to be a death. There's going to be a death squad, and we're going to decide who lives and who dies because we don't have enough ventilators. And you have to decide. You tell the 26,000 people they're going to die without ventilators. Well, what happened? We had more ventilators than we knew what to do with. We didn't use the lion's share of them. And it turns out that as of April, 88% of people who went on ventilators died. Okay. What other breaking news do you have for me of how this works and how science works? We were 100% wrong on ventilators. We were wrong and that the system was going to be overwhelmed, and we were wrong that they even worked. I mean, by the time you get on a ventilator, you're clinging to life anyway. But I think if you talk to most doctors today and you said, would you put your client or your patient on a ventilator, they'd say no. That appears to be the new news. So what do we know? Now, I don't blame them for misinformation. That's what they know when they know it. I'm just saying slow your roll when the next piece of information comes down the pike that you absolutely know. Did you see how much certitude he had? You tell the 26,000 people they're going to die. Well, it didn't happen. So far as I know, much of the stuff we've known has been wrong, and the more you hear about the lockdown, now more doctors are thinking it's killing more people for ancillary things, suicide, drug overdose, domestic abuse.
Well, and Governor Cuomo himself, I believe, said that at least in New York, they're noticing that the people who are getting sick and going to the hospital are people who share the same house as somebody who's sick. So when you're sheltering at home, you're getting each other sick. But just as a peace of mind for Natalia, or for the family, or for even just listeners, whoever, would you be willing, after you get back from another state, like, Houston or whatever, to take a test and say, look, I'm still negative. Like we're all on the same page. Like, is that something that you think would settle the mind?
I'd be more than happy to do it.
I'm sure Drew could get one.
The problem with that is, as one who's actually taken the test, it took a full 7 days for my results to come back. Right. Christy's came back in like 5 days. Her dad never got his results. So like it's the testing isn't like, it's not instantaneous. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to take the test and then go home. They're going to take the test and wait for 7.
All right.
But just to have it taken.
Couldn't hurt. Sam Harris coming up in about 25:30. So we have the news. Before that, we'll take a quick break, come back and do the news with Gina and Bald right after this.
The Adam Carolla Show salutes the winners of the COVID-19 pandemic. Lori Loughlin, After more than a year of maintaining your innocence, you finally pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud. Your husband did the same thing. This plea deal does come with jail time, but they're releasing real criminals from jail right now, so the chances of you doing actual time are slim to none. So while folks like Felicity Huffman pled guilty early and had to do actual jail time, you will most likely receive a suspended sentence and do some time on house arrest. But your win will only lead to a great media win because they can finally say, full house arrest. Lori Loughlin, we knew you were lying. You knew you were lying. But damn it, kid, you got moxie. And that makes you a winner of COVID-19.
Long but sound, Dawson. All right, Gina, should we do a little news?
Let's do it.
I didn't have it loaded up. I'm sorry. Stand by.
All right.
While he's doing that, Adam, Nashville Thursday night just got canceled, so we'll just do
Yeah,
Friday,
I told Mike.
Okay.
Too.
You know what? Are we taking a break in... So we should have just gone in with news here, and I can place that later.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Give me the news with Grad, news with Gina Grad, breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad, trouble in the Middle East, celebrity drunk meltdowns. Need news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
I'm just receiving a breaking news alert right now that Dodger Stadium, since they got nothing else to do right now, will be the new testing site. If you're interested in getting a COVID-19 test, might as well use that parking lot. We were speaking to somebody in the barbershop and hair salon business, so perfect time to release another bit of breaking news that I just received right before we started today. Hair salons and barbershops are now able to reopen their doors in parts of California, according to Governor Newsom. Counties that have attested to the state that COVID-19 is under control locally can start reopening their businesses effective immediately. 47 of the 58 counties in California have completed the process. The ones around here include Orange, Riverside, Ventura, San Bernardino, Santa Barbara. Did you hear a county missing in that list?
Los Angeles.
That's right. We will not be part of the reopening process because we are still the epicenter of many death and pandemics. So we are not included on the list, but maybe you want to come over to the Valley and go to the Inland Empire and get that trimmed up look in the next week or two.
God, we're
Adam,
such
let me ask you
pussies. Yeah.
question about your haircut. I noticed it looked a little shorter than normal.
Yes.
Did you get an extra 3/4 of an inch just to wait out this inevitable haircut ban out here?
I'm glad you brought that up. Not intentionally, but I'll take it because it'll grow into. I'll buy myself an extra 3 weeks of growing time. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, Bald, you haven't, but Maxipada, Dawson, whomever, you tell me. I've had many, many conversations with many, many hairdressers / barbers, including my own sister who did it for a living and would occasionally cut my hair. But I've also had this, it's like when you go out to eat and you go, hey, no mayonnaise on the BLT, and they go, gotcha, and then they just put extra mayonnaise on. Like, that's the kind of world we're living in. But the difference between this and the mayonnaise is you're not following them into the kitchen. Like, the woman is cutting my hair, and they always go, how do you like it? And I go, I wear it shorter on the top, on the side, but I leave it longer, leave it long on the top. It looks better when it's longer on the top. And they go, okay. And then moments later, they proceed to start cutting the top short. And it's like, hey, bitch, I just told you what we were doing here. And I said longer on the top. Like, it's kind of like when you say, you order the French fries and they give you one packet of ketchup at the In-N-Out, and you go, hey, man, could I have a little more ketchup? And they give you a big handful of it. Right. Like they give you 18, like don't come back again. If somebody says longer on the top, I'm going to go long on the top, and I'm going to go, is this too long? You want me to bring it down a little? But they literally, as you're saying it, you can see them just sort of pulling it and cutting and pulling it. And I'm watching them do it. And I always have the same thought, which is, should I stop them and tell them no?
It's too late.
On the other hand, they just cut the front like to 7/8 of an inch. And then also, there's a part of me in the back of my head that goes, they know something because I just told them what I wanted and they're doing something. It's wet or whatever. My hair dries. I go back to my house and I go, oh, it's too fucking short on the top. But I told them not to do that as they were doing it. That happens 50% of the time. What is that? Why is that so hard to convey?
It happens to women too, and I think it's more of an assault when it happens to women, because here's what happens to me, and this is almost 100% of the time. Very specific. Leave it on the long side. Trim only what you have to. Otherwise, it poofs up like a Christmas tree. I'm Ashkenazic. I know what I'm talking about. Please. So they always do it perfectly. It's beautiful. The layers are cut. It's done. About to take the bib off, and they go, what do you think? I go, it's great, thank you. And then they go, perfect. They grab the scissors again and then do a little more trimming. I'm like, oh, why? What? We just both agreed it was perfect. It doesn't matter what salon you go to. You sign off and then they give it a one more once over, and then it's ruined, and then you pay.
Does that happen to you, Maxipada and or Dawson? And then why?
So the haircut I got before this one, she asked how I like my hair. I said I usually part it on the side. So then she tends to wet my hair and parts it in the middle and starts cutting it. And I think, I wonder if I should tell her again that I part on the side. But I just told her that, and she's a professional. She knows what she's doing. I will just see what happens. And then she let me go away with my hair parted in the middle. And I was like, all right.
Nerd alert.
I think why are you asking is my question. And yes, she cut it way too short on the top. I don't give a shit, but I give a shit in that you asked a question, I expressed my answer, and then you ignored it completely in the next matter of minutes. It's not like, all right, I'll see you this time next week for that actual haircut we've been discussing. I have not got up. We're sitting in a chair. You're looking at my mouth in a mirror. I'm explaining to you what I'm doing. And you can bring a little more off if and you like. You cannot add any on. So why not do it incrementally? Hey, Gina, Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace, yes, your hair's pretty short and it's pretty poofy.
Well, that's the kind of hair that I grew up with. That's the kind of hair that I like, because I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, the higher the hair, the closer to God. And I like to keep a little volume on the top so the great Lord above knows that I am with him and that he is with me.
So it's a religious thing for you.
It's a religious choice. I also think that, it's almost like a natural facelift when you just get a little poof. Just a little poof, you just get a little more on the top. It makes you look more awake. It makes you look less guilty, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Now, what would be a guilty type hairdo? Like cornrows or something like that?
Oh, don't get me started. Of course, the cornrows. That's something you're putting way too much time and way too much effort into your hair. You should be putting more effort into, not stealing things and breaking into cars. Well, also, a layered look. A layered look has that same thing. Every Disney villain, every princess that's being tortured and imprisoned has that look that the layers are going right into the face, right into the cheekbones. That's an evil look. See, in the picture that you're seeing of me, they almost gave me that Ursula from The Little Mermaid look. And I said, no, stop. No, we want to look innocent. I'm Nancy Grace.
I hope you weren't listening to the beginning part of the show, but I, in fact, went to Texas and my family went to Florida. And obviously that's not...
Oh, so you must have been in that new prototype. You got the bubble suit. You tried the bubble suit?
No. I had like an old mask that I used to use during construction. It's just been floating around my car and really, yeah. And I was nipping off a flask half the flight too, so I had to kind of pull it down. So not exactly protocol, I guess.
But this was a private plane that you commissioned, so it's fine because you were actually flying the plane. You were the only one on the plane. Now, I do not condone drinking and flying if you're the one piloting the plane, but I understand that it's your plane. You're the only one in there. It's fine. And you were going there to be a frontline volunteer for all the people that are sick. So your heart was in the right place.
Yeah. Well, it was privately owned by Southwest Airlines, so I don't know if that means private to you.
So you were on one of those anyone coming to the front lines to volunteer their time, we're going to give you a free spot on Southwest. And of course, that middle seat's going to be open and we're going to let you ride off and we're going to put you up in one of them FEMA tents and you're going to get to work helping the sick, right?
I actually was getting my eyebrows waxed and eating a tomahawk steak. That's where they keep the bone. They keep the bone on there. Well, it looks like a tomahawk. It's named after. It's named after.
It's so funny. I always forget you're a comedian first, and boy, you do make my ribs hurt sometimes.
Yeah. Speaking of ribs, did we get? We didn't get any ribs when we were over there, did we, Maxipada?
No ribs.
It's all about eating.
Shame.
Well, I probably ate lobster ribs if they have.
Oh,
ribs.
I loved. We ordered a lobster, like a 3-pound lobster. They just took a lobster and they whacked it in half and. Me and Mike ate the tail, and Maxipada ate all the guts right out of the middle of it. All the turquoise-colored weirdness, all the goo
tamale
in the middle. He devoured the whole thing, and I loved every second of it.
Making my mouth water.
That's right. Sorry, what else we got, Gina Grad?
All right. Well, I don't know that any of these breaking stories that are really all the rage in the headline department right now are going to make you feel any calmer. But there is a viral video of this woman being absolutely screamed and shouted out of a grocery store in Staten Island because she seemed to be the only customer not wearing a mask. This went full street justice with the other shoppers. Basically, this happened in Staten Island. The video's the woman's pushing a cart without a face mask. She's then surrounded by people screaming at her. A customer repeatedly points her toward the door. She finally leaves. This was, the order was from April 17th from Cuomo saying that you have to cover your face if you can't social distance, like in a grocery store. And here's the pandemonium that ensued.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck everybody! Get the fuck out of here!
The yelling in her face probably doesn't mitigate the mask situation.
Get out! Okay. Go ahead, move the ass like a dirty ass kid. Dirty ass, huh? What do you think?
Wow. Yeah, it's end days. Hey, I was thinking of Bryan because I saw a tweet that was trending, which was Jimmy Fallon in blackface. And I don't know if you know, but there's been some unearthed footage.
It's resurfaced.
It's resurfaced and unearthed. I read
yes,
both.
Right.
And I this is stuff he was probably worried one day might get out, especially since he broadcast it in 2000.
On SNL, on the most popular shows in the history of television. Probably been turned into a best of.
I know, but it's recently unearthed.
Sure. Yeah.
And it is. And again, he thought he could hide these skeletons in his closet. No, it's been unearthed.
Dug up.
Oh, he apologized? I knew it.
Of course he did.
I knew it. Now, not only is he doing Chris Rock, but Chris Rock was a former cast member, obviously. So, now you guys may think there's something, I don't know, why am I so concerned about this? I'm concerned about this because blackface is a thing, but this is not blackface. This is him impersonating another cast member, just like when Baldwin does Trump. Now you go, well, Baldwin's a white guy and Trump's a white guy. Yes, he does his best to look like Trump.
He does orange face.
He does orange face. He tries to look like Trump. That you when you attempt to play another character, you have to attempt to physically look like them. That means skin tone. okay. Blackface is a completely different thing from a different era that is offensive in and of itself. But this is not blackface. This is you doing an impersonation of Chris Rock, number one. So what's the concern? The concern is all the calories burnt trying to make us sort of evil and racist. Jimmy Fallon is the least of anybody's worries on this planet.
He's a gentle soul.
Nobody needs to apologize less than. And by the way, between Fallon and Kimmel, two of the Jimmys, 2 out of 3 late night guys, have been flogged for blackface, but they weren't doing blackface. They were doing characters in the context of a comedy show. I don't know what his apology is, by the way. But you don't need to apologize. All right. In 2000, while on SNL, I made a terrible decision. Well, why was it a terrible decision if you and everyone around you didn't know it was a terrible decision?
Yeah, it passed a lot of filters to get on the air, obviously.
Right. To do an impersonation of Chris Rock while in blackface. Again, I don't know, everyone. You sort of taking everything and turning it into everything is not great. It's while in blackface. I still argue that that's from minstrel show era. But anyway, there is no excuse for this. Oh, yes, there is. I'm very sorry for making this unquestionably offensive decision. And thank you all for holding me accountable. Oh, he's going to the cornfield. Little Billy's going to just think about that line. Thank you. Let me read that last line again. Thank you for holding me accountable. Thank you for holding me accountable. Thank you, mob, for forcing me. Thank you for correcting me. I didn't know what I was doing. I now know. 20 years on, I'm sure Rock is a good friend of his. And I'm sure Chris...
I'd love to hear what Chris Rock has to say about
I'm sure he doesn't give 2 shits because we've lost all context in our world. And here's the problem. Jimmy Fallon, tell these fucking assholes, who, by the way, nobody thinks you're racist, and nobody thinks what you did was racist. Tell them to fucking suck your dick. What are we doing here? All you're going to do is get more. You're negotiating with terrorists. You're negotiating with hostage takers. You're going to get more hostages. That's why we have more hostages. Thank you. Thank you, overlords. Thank you for correcting me. Ugh. And also, does anyone think anything about this?
No, of course, there's a huge difference between doing an impersonation of a famous person like Chris Rock or Karl Malone or Mr. T or someone who's famous and you're doing an impersonation of them. Obviously, blackface is very, very different. That's from a different era. It's like comparing athletes across eras. Like, oh, he could never hit today's pitchers. Maybe not, but he was great for his era, or that was wrong for that era. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. It's not the same thing, obviously.
We have the sketch. We'll see if it's funny.
For your reach, Chris Rock's here. Chris Rock, now we're talking. Where is he? Man, oh man, read this book. I've seen Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and guess what? Not a lot of black folks on the show. Right. Not a lot of black folks on the show. You know why? Because black folks don't like to answer questions. Oh, they want to be millionaires, but you got to ask that kind of questions like, in 1981, how many grams of crack did Rick James smoke when he recorded Super Freak?
It's funny. It's a funny impersonation. If he tried to do it without putting on black makeup, then it wouldn't be nearly as effective. All right. We're idiots. Please, can we knock this shit off, human beings? Or are we out of problems? Do we not have any problems? What about kids? What about hunger?
Feels like we
what
have
about homelessness? I know.
Feels like we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So this is it's nice to think that this is...
He's not impersonating a black guy. He's not being a black guy for Halloween, which would be offensive. He's being Chris Rock and doing a decent job of it.
Who's a former cast member on the same show he's on? Look, we're out. Look, this just says to me we're out of racism because we got to go find it now. We're looking for it now. All right, let's do one more, Gina Grad.
All right, let's see here. So we talk every once in a while about people who wrestle wild animals, and we have one in the news. A 23-year-old visitor at the Warsaw Zoo in Poland has been sentenced to steep fines and community service after entering a bear enclosure on Thursday and tussling with a giant bear, allegedly while drunk. And we're playing the clip now as I tell you the story. So there's the dude. He's in the enclosure. He jumps into the kind of bear
pit.
pool, you know,
Yeah.
the water.
The moat.
Oh, he's in the water. He's in the moat.
Yep. The bear's thinking about what his next move is going to be. This is all being filmed. So he goes over to the other side.
That's a nice.
And I'm no Joe Buck here, but we're trying to do a little play-by-play. The guy's swimming around.
Oh, that bear sees his opportunity right there.
Slides on down and wants to get a closer look.
And
Here he
there is a
comes.
spot.
Oh, boy.
Oh, the bear's in the water.
That bear can swim.
But this guy says, oh, great, this is a perfect time for me to jump on the bear's back, start pulling his ears and wrestling the bear under the water. So that's what we're looking at right now. Guy's a complete fool. This took place last Thursday, also prompted city officials and zoo authorities to transfer the two bears that live in the enclosure to a more interior area. Footage, which we just watched, was shared to Twitter, shows the man just basically just baiting this bear and then jumping on his back. The man, extracted himself from the water and back onto the artificial island, where he was then pulled out of there by the fire brigade. And he was later charged with animal cruelty, disturbing the peace, and also tacked on a fine for not wearing a mask. He was sentenced to 2 years of community service.
They got him for everything.
Yep, roughly $1,300 in fines. And by the way, that bear was rescued from a circus. So it was probably one of those, oh no, not again moments for the bear, but maybe not completely foreign to him.
I will tell you this, as a young man, having animal cruelty on your rap sheet is such a deal breaker for first dates. I'm telling you, if most women I know, if you said on a first date, look, I got to come clean, I have been arrested. If you said,
ooh, bad boy,
for killing my family, they would say, was your dad a bad guy?
What did they do?
But if you said animal cruelty, I was literally thinking about this. I got home last Sunday at like 10:30 in the morning from Texas. The kids and Lynette were coming home at noon from Florida. I was walking, I was in the house the whole time. They were gone, and then I left for like 3 days. But I had this thought. If I knew they were coming home in 2 minutes, and I was walking down the hall, and I had to make a move, but I couldn't make both moves. I could only make one. Either turn to the right and fill the dog's water bowl, or go upstairs to the master bedroom and remove a dead prostitute from our bed. I would stop, think about it, and make the move for the water bowl. If those are my only two choices, that's how coached up I am.
I have another sort of hot headline breaking example of that. A story we didn't get to, the woman in Central Park that I'm sure you've heard the story by now. She had her dog off the leash in a part of Central Park where you have to have your dog on a leash because it's where birders go to take pictures of birds. And when there's dogs trying to flush out birds and they can't do what that part of the park is for. So this black man said to this white woman, can you please put your dog on the leash? This is a part of the park where your dog has to be on a leash. She went nuts. She got on the phone, called the police, says there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Man. Oh, man. See, this is the guy we got to overcompensate for. Sorry. Or the
yes,
girl.
and guess what? There's more. There is video of it, and it's hard to watch for two reasons. One, she's hysterical, and she's losing her mind. And this guy's like, what are you talking about? I just asked you to put your dog on a leash. There's a man harassing me. He's African-American. She loses her mind. All the while, she's grabbing her dog by the leash and choking.
By the collar.
Yeah, by the collar. The dog can't get air. The
leash is in one hand. She's holding the dog by the collar in the other.
The dog can't breathe. So it's very hard to watch for those two reasons. By the way, she has since lost her job, and the adoption center has taken the dog back.
Jesus Christ.
So watching that for two reasons is very, very difficult. One of them being she's choking her dog.
Adam, have you not seen this, Adam?
When did it come out?
This took social media by storm the last 36 hours or 48 hours.
When I was in hold the phone for a second. I was in Houston, and when I travel, I don't travel with my computer.
Smart.
So little crap pops up on my phone, texts and things like that, but I really don't look at stuff. So if it's going off when I was in Houston, then I did not see it. All right.
Are you familiar? But before we
Yes.
play the video, I just want to ask an establishing question. Adam, are you familiar with this trend of Karens? Did you know the Karen
I have
trend?
heard someone say stop using Karen on Twitter, but I don't know what it means.
Well,
Basically just white policy Pam type white women trying to bust people of color for doing stupid shit that you shouldn't be calling the police.
But Gina, I had this thought as it pertains to Adam and Karen's. Karen, this woman is a Karen. She's a middle-aged white woman who's losing her fucking mind over nothing and blah blah. The woman who probably didn't wear her mask in the grocery store we just saw. Adam, your theory of women going insane when they get to a certain middle age, like just losing their fucking minds, especially ones who maybe used to be attractive. I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's the Karen trend.
Well, there's a couple things. Yes, when you sort of built a life around every time you walked into a restaurant or a bar, half the people in there wanted to fuck you, and that's off the table now. That scrambles your brain. But also living in a zero gravity environment, like not having to really get out there and work and hustle. I guarantee none of these people, these women, work at a Waffle House. If you've seen what people who work at a Waffle House do, like they have responsibilities, they have agendas, they have timetables, like they're on their feet, they're sweating, they're moving. Yes, this zero gravity environment is taking its toll on our brains. And guys, we stop producing as much testosterone, our prostates blow up, and we mellow out. Chicks get nuttier, and thus the Karen complex. All right, let me hit Geico here real quick. Yeah, everybody is doing their part these days, sharing their dance moves and their DIY haircut fails. How about Geico does a little sharing? Geico's going to give back 15% credit on motorcycle policies and automobile policies. Current and new customers, because Geico's committed for the long haul, that's 15% credit. It lasts the full length of the policy. Visit geico.com/giveback for info and eligibility at geico.com. All right, we'll do more Karen talk tomorrow. I feel like there's going to be some fertile soil here. We'll show that video and beyond. Do we have an outro, Dawson, to play?
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Author, philosopher, and neuroscientist Sam Harris, a guy I'm a fan of, is going to be making the little one-on-one round here next. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with Sam Harris right after this. Oh, Roland, sorry. Sam Harris has joined us. I'm a fan of his. He's an author, philosopher, and neuroscientist as well. Has a podcast, Making Sense with Sam Harris, and new episodes every week on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and a meditation app called Waking Up. I'm very interested in that. I remember one of my first rounds with you was watching you on Bill Maher's show, arguing with Ben Affleck, who seemed possessed at the time. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Oh, sure. It's a pleasure.
I find myself not from the same kind of background that you have academically. I have no academic background, but as I travel through this thing called life, I find myself thinking more and more about some of the thoughts that you think quite a bit about. Is this something that was always interesting for you, this philosophy and neuroscience, or was it something you kind of came on to?
Well, yeah, I kind of did everything backwards. I would say I got into esoteric things first, like meditation and interest in the nature of consciousness, and interest in religion actually early on. And then it was only after that I got interested in science and kind of backed into. I got into writing what became philosophy. And then I discovered that I really needed to go do some more academic work to do that well. And I was going to do a PhD in philosophy, but then at the last minute decided that it made more sense to do a PhD in neuroscience, just to be more in touch with what we were learning about the brain. If I wanted to talk about the mind, I needed to know something about the brain. So it really, it's not the usual order of things, but it's I'm now in a position happily to really get all of my intellectual interests on the same page. I mean, it's all kind of converged. And so now I think a lot about the nature of the human mind and what constitutes a good life. And so there's moral philosophy combined with neuroscience, combined with public policy and even politics. So it all is kind of gelling. And I don't, as you probably know, I don't really respect the boundaries between disciplines very much. I don't think reality is following the architectural plan of a university. So I think you can think profitably about really anything that interests you and just go back and forth across the boundaries between disciplines.
Yeah, I completely agree. Have a variety of people you listen to and from all sides of the aisle and spectrum, and then just sort of cherry pick all the best of, like some kind of jukebox where you just play your favorite songs. I've been talking to Dr. Drew about this a lot, especially during this pandemic, and people and adults especially sort of losing their ability to reason and use logic in a world where everything's captured on videotape and every fact is provable using your phone or your computer. How far away we're getting away from the truth. Is that it? It's not making sense to me. I thought by now we'd all be sort of securely moored to the truth because we have videotape and we have phones and we have computers and it's all so readily available. But it feels like we're getting further away from a reality into everyone sort of creating their own form of reality. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, it really is cutting both ways, what technology is doing to us. This is something rather like a psychological experiment that we've all been enrolled in without really consenting to it. And the outcome is not at all obvious, but you take the impact of social media and the internet generally, and the instantaneous access to information and an ability to communicate with everyone potentially, and to have your communication not only go one-to-one with anyone, but to have a larger and larger audience. And so people begin to signal to an audience and to their tribe within that audience. And this is distorting communication, it's distorting people's thinking about the world, and it's improving it in some places. I mean, you can fact check something very easily, or certainly more easily than you used to be able to, but you can also silo yourself off into an echo chamber, really just curated by your own delusions, your preferred delusions. And so people, it used to be that, if to become a real crackpot, you had to work hard to find, either you did it in solitude or you had to work pretty hard to find other crackpots. And when you met them at the crackpot conference, they rather often looked like crackpots, right? You could see the dysfunction in their lives. And, they would advertise to you, both their mania and their really lack of credibility on many topics. But now, you don't know who you're getting information from, and it could be some 18-year-old in the proverbial mother's basement just blogging about whatever it is, 9/11 truth or something that some rabbit hole you've gone down, and you can spend a decade down that hole not recognizing who you're dealing with, or whether it's Russian bots or whoever getting information into your head. So it does cut both ways. I mean, I'm bullish on the prospect of communication generally. I think if we can just continue the conversation long enough, we converge more and more on truth. But you do need some basic principles by which to do that. And one is, you have to be alert to confirmation bias in your case. You have to be alert to just seeking out, and this is everyone's tendency, to seek out confirmation of your cherished opinion and to ignore disconfirmations. And if you're just looking for reasons why it's possible to believe something rather than looking for the things that actually disconfirm your view, you can always find reasons why it's possible to believe something, because it's rare to have a view, even a crazy one, completely knocked down for all time by specific facts. So it's yeah, I mean, we have to become more intelligent consumers of information.
And I'll just sort of leap from topic to topic. I have been telling people for a while now that we're going to need to sort of take charge of our mental hygiene a little better than we've been doing in the past. And the physical part we got, you're no longer working, chopping, swinging an axe all day. You're not working at a sawmill. You're not up on your feet. You're not carrying a gourd with water in it on your head. So we invented a treadmill. You go run on that. And you can strap on a weighted vest to simulate the logs you would be carrying back to the campsite. So we kind of physically figured out you need to simulate this, indoor rock climbing walls and stuff like that, just an indoor mountain that we simulate climbing a mountain and exercise. We got it. I don't feel like we anticipated the mental part of this. It's invisible. You see yourself putting weight on. You see it. You don't see yourself getting crazy. And
yeah.
And what is some? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important distinction. The invisibility of the mind, and the lack of social proof for change. I mean, so as you say, physical training is a thing, and we've understood that for at least a century, but it used to be a completely esoteric thing, right? So 150 years ago, the only person engaged in real physical training was that freak at the circus, with the handlebar mustache, right? It was just not, it made no sense to be living that way. And you can imagine, you could sort of reclaim some of that, early astonishment if you just think of how strange physical exercise looks from the outside if you don't understand the project. I mean, if you look at somebody just picking up random heavy objects and putting them down over and over again, it's bizarre, but the results are there for all to see. Now, it is a fact, as you say, that mental training now is just as esoteric as physical exercise was over a century ago, and yet it is a thing. I mean, the mind is on some basic level, what the brain is doing. And most people have this notion that mental growth stops in adulthood. They understand you can learn new things, but your mind itself doesn't fundamentally improve. You can't actually become a better person, a kinder person, a more compassionate person, a more deeply wise person. You can't transform your personality, and that basically that's untrue. It's hard, and the fact that it's hard makes it difficult to see just how far a person can take this project. And there are ways to see the possibility. I mean, many of us didn't discover the benefit of things like meditation until we first took psychedelics, and in my case, that honestly was a necessary piece. I mean, if I had not taken MDMA the first time, I would not have understood that my mind could be a much better place to live in than it was tending to be. And I wouldn't have sought out meditation as a practice. And even if I had sought it out, I think had I not seen how much greener the grass was on the other side of that fence, I probably wouldn't have even seen the fence, right? And because it took some significant training before I started to really experience the benefits. But you can, in the same way that you can with physical exercise, you can transform your moment-to-moment experience of the world. And the importance of doing that is it's just a basic recognition that you're in each moment, your mind is all you have, right? And the quality of your mind determines the quality of your life and the quality of your relationships. And everything else you find captivating at the level of your attention, the goals to which you aspire, and the way you feel about the past, and the degree to which you worry about the future. All of these are mental events, and your relationship to your thoughts and moods and emotions can be fundamentally changed. And it takes some work to do that, but it's certainly worth doing.
Well, the thought that was coming to my mind as you were saying that, and I had an experience the first time I took mushrooms when I was like 19 or 20, which is, I'm not a psychedelic guy per se. I've had taken mushrooms a few times, but I remember thinking, oh, I'm now thinking differently than what I was sort of indoctrinated to think. And what I mean is I remember getting high on mushrooms, and I was watching TV, and a commercial came on for Lee press-on nails, plastic red nails women would stick to the end of their fingers. And I thought,
That's exactly what you want to watch on mushrooms. Right?
I remember thinking, now, if I wasn't high, it would just be the 5,700th time I saw a commercial for Lee press-on nails. But now that I'm high, I'm examining this world that we've created, this society that we've created, where the females of the species are sticking these bloody red extensions, essentially making claws. And I remember thinking when I was high, oh, you would have never had these thoughts. You wouldn't have examined it and looked at it this way. You wouldn't have sort of taken this approach to what you're looking at. You would have just seen it, had another swig off your beer, and moved on. And so I always kind of recognize the value of removing yourself sort of from how you think, how society thinks. You're right in the middle of it. You know, it's hard to get away from it. This was getting away from it in my mind. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. There are really two different aspects to this. I mean, one is you can change the contents of consciousness. You can have new ideas. You can think in different patterns, and all of that's worth doing because the contents of our minds so often are a matter of this really dismal conversation we tend to have with ourselves, and we're just judging ourselves, and we're worrying about the future, and we're replaying conversations we had with somebody in our heads, and we're judging everyone else, and there's a kind of mediocrity. And I mean, honestly, if you could just externalize your thoughts, you would notice that you're telling yourself the same story over and over again, and you've lost your capacity to be bored. I mean, you're like the perfect audience for the most boring person in the world. I'm speaking not of you personally, but really everyone who practices meditation. You just notice how repetitive these patterns are, and so you can improve all that by shaking things up in a variety of ways. Just having better conversations with people who know things you don't, and learning new skills, and reading good books, and we do all of that, and that's worth doing. And perturbing the brain with psychedelics or marijuana or some drug like that. I mean, obviously not all drugs are the same, but some clearly kick open the door to new levels of creativity and just connecting up, perceptions and ideas in ways that are novel. And so there's a whole poetic engagement with reality that can get jump started there, and it's that's worth doing. But the core goal of meditation is to change one's relationship with the contents of consciousness entirely, so that on some level it doesn't matter what the thoughts are or what the emotions are. You want to recognize things as mere appearances in this prior space of that's knowing things, which for consciousness or awareness, for lack of a better word. And that's that transition from being lost in thought perpetually to recognizing thoughts of whatever they are. I mean, it could be beautifully insightful thoughts or the most boring thought you've had all day. Just noticing these bits of language or images in the mind as appearances, that breaks a spell which is really the core of our psychological suffering. I mean, we spend all day feeling like there's a subject in our heads, right? That we're kind of riding around in the body like a passenger. We don't feel identical to our bodies. We feel like we have bodies, and we feel like the subject. And that sense of being the thinker of thoughts or the experiencer of experience, there's something in the center of experience that's not merely identical to experience, but just it's having the experience. That feeling of I, that's what it feels like to be thinking without vividly recognizing thoughts as appearances in consciousness. And so meditation, the real purpose of meditation is to have that recognition. And then there's something very interesting happens. You begin to feel a kind of well-being that is not predicated on anything changing or anything happening. It's just the inherent tranquility of consciousness is a thing you're noticing. And then in that moment, it doesn't matter that the last thought that came through your mind was an angry one, or the pain in your knee has not gone away, or it's just your well-being is not contingent upon changing the contents of consciousness in the next moment.
Well, let's talk about change. I realize I had this thought that I don't think I've ever had before. I know that we fight change. We're constantly fighting change. And I know personally, if somebody says, hey, you could probably be a better parent if you did X, Y, and Z, I immediately go, what do you mean? I do blah, blah, blah. I'm already kind of pushing back, instead of absorbing it and going, okay, I think I'm a good parent, but I could be better. So I'll do that. I do that reaction of I do this and I do that, and everyone's kind of pushing back against change. But also I've realized probably built the whole society against that. I mean, or to help perpetuate that. I have this sort of thought that Madison Avenue and companies and society figures out pretty quickly what works, what our capacities and propensities are, what we want to do. So if we're fear-based, and then you turn on the news and it's the new death toll hits a macabre plateau at almost 80,000, and it's like, okay, they're selling pancakes to us. They know what we do and they're giving it to us. You know what I'm saying? And so our society and our culture is basically built itself around this, us not wanting to change. It's like, well, you got to sell them this brand of toothpaste when they're 15 because they'll use it for the rest of their life. They won't change, or you got to get them on this brand of cigarettes at 15 or whatever it is. And I'm realizing that we should be changing, and everything is kind of conspiring against us changing, except for folks like you who are sort of outliers saying, do this differently, although that is a growing population. But change in our society, do you have thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are certain kinds of changes we want. I mean, obviously, most people have a model of ways they want their lives to change. They have a list of things they want, whether they're career goals or relationship goals, or they want to improve their health. People want change, but they want control, right? They want to be able to move in an orderly way from where they are to where they want to be. And it just so happens we're living in a system, and we're a part of that system. I mean, our minds and brains are systems themselves, where control is basically an illusion, right? We don't have control ultimately over anything. I mean, we have a pretense of control in certain ways. I mean, you can tend to be who you were yesterday, and most of us will tend to do that, but you didn't invent yourself. You didn't pick your genes or your parents or the conditions in which you grew up. You haven't made your mind, and every choice you're making now is based on all of these, these patterns of conditioning that precede you as the conscious subject of your life. And so you have exactly the level of effort and ambition that you have today, and not an ounce more. And if somebody has a conversation with you and really inspires you to do better or to work harder, well, then that's great. That's an influence that can have its effect, but you didn't pick how that influenced you and to what degree it did, right? So it's on some level, everything is just happening, right? And we also know that anything at any point can happen. I mean, this coronavirus pandemic, for all its other effects, And one thing it teaches us is that life can change for everyone very, very quickly and emphatically, and in a way that no one really foresaw. I mean, this was totally foreseeable, but it wasn't foreseeable to happen, in the month of February. And so suddenly, like, we're part of history, right? I mean, many of us, you and I are pretty close to the same age. I didn't really feel like I was part of history until 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before 9/11, I felt like basically, the history was one thing. History is something you read about in history books, but we're living in a time of real order, and we're not going to be fundamentally surprised by the direction that civilization takes. And then people start flying planes into our buildings, and all of a sudden we have a decade that is filled with multi-trillion-dollar wars and bizarre concerns about theocracy in the Middle East and terrorism, and this pandemic is another one of those things where it just comes lurching out of the shadows, and you realize, well, there is nothing guaranteeing anything good here apart from human ingenuity and the capacity to cooperate. I mean, what we need to maintain above all else, and this is why, the pollution of our information space is so toxic. We need to maintain an ability for seven now, nearly 8 billion people, 8 billion strangers to cooperate with one another peacefully. I mean, that's the only thing that guarantees that this project is open-ended. And we have problems, massive problems we have to solve, and many of them only admit of global solutions at this point. And a pandemic, an intelligent response to a pandemic is certainly one of those things, as is an intelligent response to an economic catastrophe that follows our response to the pandemic. So there's just, on some level, it's really humbling how minimal the tools are we have here with which to do anything. I mean, and the most basic tool is honest conversation among people who are willing to be motivated, have appropriate emotional responses to a common set of facts. And if we can't acknowledge, the same part of terrestrial reality and admit that facts are facts, or if we have whole subsets of humanity who have completely deranged emotional responses to the same facts because they have, insane beliefs about, paradise and the afterlife and martyrdom, or what, to take one example, it just, conversation and cooperation becomes impossible. And, we keep witnessing the warp and woof of that, hour by hour in our world. And it's really on some levels, the only thing going on. It's like, can we cooperate and expand human knowledge in useful ways, or is cooperation going to break down for reasons of just an impossibility of communication?
Well, and I should clarify myself, because we love the subject of change. We just don't personally like it. It's like we like prisons, just sort of not in our backyard. Hope and change. We're 3 days away from fundamentally changing this society. Like, we like that kind of change, but we don't like engaging in it. But maybe that's a weird thing, that we like talking about it and hearing about it a lot, but we don't do it personally that much. And yeah, facts. I am very, very attracted to facts, and they seem so accessible now, and so it almost seems like the people who the facts don't help are waging a more strident war against facts. Like I just sort of that whole conversation with you on Real Time with Ben and Bill was you and Bill trying to push some facts, and not in a radical way, just pushing some facts out ahead and fighting people that were wrestling with the facts, even though they didn't need to. There was a conversation that could have been had.
Right. Yeah. Well, in that case, when conversation's breaking down, it's useful to look at the assumptions people have because they're often implicit. They're not necessarily expressed in the conversation. And it's the problem with normal television, unlike a podcast, is the time pressure makes conversation so often impossible. Everyone's just struggling to get a word in edgewise, and interruptions really threaten, that you'll be taken out of context or just unable to say what you need to say. Whereas on a podcast, you can really let the conversation breathe, and that's why podcasting is enjoying such a boom. But one assumption is that all religions are at bottom the same, and they teach the same thing, and they teach it equally well. And they can all get hijacked by extremists and perverted, but at bottom they're all teaching love and compassion and respect for the individual, and these are good messages, and they're equivalent. Now, that's just not true, right? They even if where they do seem to teach the same thing, they don't teach it equally well, and worse, when you get to their serious doctrines, which true believers have to believe in order to be in good standing in that faith community, they're mutually exclusive. If you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that is blasphemy within Islam, right? So it's just a deal breaker. It offers about as much compromise as a coin toss, right? So the true fundamentalists in each religion understand that there's no reconciling their most cherished beliefs. And it's only the moderates, or the people who have kind of lost their purchase on their faith, who can engage in a truly open-ended interfaith dialogue that seems to promise some meeting of the minds. I mean, moderation is definitely better than fundamentalism. I think moderation is great, except it doesn't. It's often quite dishonest because it doesn't acknowledge how it became moderate, and you certainly don't become moderate by reading the books more closely. God is not a moderate, and there's no place in the Bible where moderation is recommended. And so, anyway, the one assumption that Batman was laboring under there was that only bigotry could explain a specific concern about Islam. If you're a white guy who's more worried about Islam in the aftermath of 9/11 than you are about Mormonism or Anglicanism or even Scientology, the only way to be more worried about Islam there is to be a racist or a bigot. And that's just untrue, and if what Ben needs is to get in conversation with some ex-Muslims or some moderate Muslims, real moderate Muslims, and he'll hear the same concerns from them that I was voicing in that conversation, and he won't be so confused by the color of the person's skin or their country of origin.
Well, I can't figure out, and I think Christopher Hitchens is a guy you enjoy, correct?
Yeah, he was a friend, yeah.
And I was watching him talking, having a debate on the 92nd Why, I believe it was, and he was talking about Islam. And at some point he just said, the things that I'm saying about Islam, I can say here, but I couldn't say them in parts of Europe and many parts of the world because I would fear what would happen to me as I left the auditorium, or I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I'm saying. And to me, that's sort of an ultimate truth. If in fact you have a Charlie Hebdo, or I'm trying to think of the newspaper that printed the thing.
Charlie Hebdo, yeah.
Hebdo, right?
The Danish cartoon controversy before that. Yeah.
Right. Now, you can tell me all you want about the history of Christianity and Mormons and Judaism or what have you. You can tell me all about the Crusades, but I would not print that cartoon that was printed in that newspaper for fear that something could happen. And Christopher, voiced the same thing. And you can look at all the statistics you want, but to me, that's a bigger truth. That's a real world truth. And Ben Affleck can say the amount of people that would do anything to him or them at the newspaper or whatever, it's minuscule. It's minuscule. You could say all you want, but don't we all share that truth and have that feeling? And if so, why do we have that feeling?
Well, there's no argument against that. I mean, that's actually a point I made to Ben as we left the table. So it was off air, but this is something as we're walking back to the green room. This is precisely the point I made, which is you're acting like there's no difference between these religions, but that if we had decided to burn a Book of Mormon here on air tonight, people would have been pissed off. We would have gotten hate mail, but it would have ended there. Had we burned a copy of the Quran on this show tonight, everyone on this panel would spend the rest of their lives dealing with those consequences, right? And the consequences wouldn't have been local. You burn a Quran on HBO, I guarantee you, and certainly at that point, there would have been riots by people by the tens of thousands would have rioted in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I mean, scores of people would have died over that. No question. You could bet your life on it. And that is a difference you can make sense of it in terms of the theology. It's not an accident that difference exists, but on some level it's potentially true of other religions too. I mean, it was certainly true of Christianity in the 14th century. So it's on some level you can say that Islam is where Christianity was a long time ago, and so it's just out of step with modernity in a way that other religions aren't, and that's a huge difference, right? And it has to be aligned with modernity to the point where you can actually criticize ideas without fear of being hunted by theocrats for the rest of your life. And there are people, I have friends who are being hunted by theocrats for the rest of their lives for things they have written or said about Islam, and where it's not safe for them to travel to certain countries, and they have to get security wherever they go, even in this one. I mean, that's the amazing thing, is that even in the States, we're not aware of having given up our First Amendment rights on this particular topic. I mean, we're aware of it at the margins. I mean, when South Park has to put Muhammad in a bear suit, and so you only see a bear in the cartoon, and then even that isn't sufficient. They get death threats, and they have to take that episode off of Comedy Central, as they did at the time. People don't really score that as a major societal cost, but we're practicing. We've been practicing massive self-censorship on this topic for decades now. Ever since Salman Rushdie published the Satanic Verses in '89, and half the liberal intelligentsia blamed him for having defamed a great faith, and blamed him for the death threats and for the decade he had to spend in hiding. We just have never reclaimed the ground of real equality here. And real equality is, you should be able to stage a Broadway play making fun of Mormonism, and what happens is the Mormons take out ads in playbill for their religion, right? That's just a completely good-spirited retort to your happy artwork. Whereas we know that if there had been a Broadway production making fun of Islam, it's impossible. No one would stage it, and there'd be bomb threats for every performance. I mean, there certainly would have been at the time the Book of Mormon came out. And so, I mean, this is not a problem anyone's paying attention to now, given
right.
COVID and our other political concerns. But it's not. This problem has also not gone away. I mean, I think we'll be living with the heightened concerns about jihadism ultimately. I mean, the most doctrinaire form of fundamentalist Islam, and and that is a generational thing that we still have to unwind, and we just have to speak honestly about it.
Well, I mean, I remember after Benghazi, we were blaming the cartoonist who made a cartoon, the offensive
Right.
cartoon. Now, when somebody sets an embassy on fire and burns people alive, the notion of having the cartoonist, getting them in your crosshairs and your ire toward the cartoonist means we're horribly misguided. We're missing the point. And I would say intentionally missing the point.
Yeah.
I have yes.
Go ahead. I mean, they're you can sort of see the source code running in the background here. The reason why, and this is what was confounding Ben's side of the conversation. There's this notion that, again, concerns about racism and colonialism sneak in here, and it's a logical error because, first of all, Islam, is not a race, right? Islam is a set of ideas, and Muslims can come from any race. A person can convert to Islam in 5 minutes, and now they are a Muslim as long as they profess to believe certain ideas. And so this is, and any comparison between Islam and another religion that with which it's in conflict rather often, like Hinduism, right, has people, in this case India, who look Indian because they are Indian on both sides of that equation. So racism has absolutely nothing to do with this, right? And any but he couldn't quite see that, right? So he kept calling us racist.
I'm not sure. I have a bunch of thoughts. I'm not sure if people who are calling people like you and sometimes me racist think we're racist. I'm not exactly convinced that's what they think.
If you can see that if they're lazy, they might think that because there are real racists in the world who would certainly echo some of these same thoughts. Like there are real racists who don't want any more immigration, not for all the rational reasons you might be concerned about immigration, but they just don't like more brown-skinned people from other cultures on their streets, right? And so if you ask those people about what do you think about Islam, well, they'll have some uncharitable things to say about Islam. And if I'm saying uncharitable things about Islam, I can sound like I'm echoing those people. So I can see the possibility of confusion there, but you just have to, if you hear what I also say about white supremacists and white nationalists and even fundamentalist Christians, it should be obvious within about 15 seconds that concerns about race have absolutely nothing to do with my concern about Islam. And it makes no sense because, if anything, my argument applies even more to a white convert to Islam from like someone like John Walker Lind, the so-called American Taliban, or Adam Gadon, the guy from Orange County who joined Al Qaeda. These are guys who had every opportunity to get their head straight with 21st century Enlightenment values, and they still found their way down the rabbit hole of jihadism. And so it's just race it's just not a variable here. But I do think some people are genuinely confused, and then some people are maliciously gaming, or leveraging that confusion because they know it works. The thing that was so startling about that collision with Ben on Bill's show is that I learned that if you simply call someone a racist, fully half the people in the audience will think that person was exposed as a racist. Mm-hmm. So you simply have to say you're a racist, and 50% of people leave summarizing that conversation thinking, "Oh my God, did you see how he exposed that racism? We're just there in real time. We just saw that racism just leak out of that guy." It's amazing. It's such a charged concept on the left, especially that the mere allegation. It works, I'm sure, for sexism and a few other isms, but it's it is a winning move for the people who are who are filtering by that concern above all others. And it's the problem with the whole wokeness mind virus. It's not that concerns about racism are invalid. Racism is a real problem. It's a diminishing problem, happily. I mean, the idea that we're living, in 2020 exactly where we were, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, or struggling to be passed. That's just fundamentally not true. But it's not like it's not a valid concern. But it's in the minds of many people on the far left. It is certainly an exaggerated concern, and their racism detectors are so poorly calibrated that they find it everywhere. Just everything is filtered against the color of people's skin.
I have a thought, which obviously seeing everything through the color of everyone's skin. I just heard Michael Moore on the aforementioned real-time show from last week, and he was like, every time he opens his mouth, he's like, in Michigan, we have a black DA and a black governor and a female mayor, not a bunch of white dudes. And it's like, I'm realizing, do you know what that sounds like, that you're constantly harping on the color of people's skin? And it's also weird to have middle-aged white guy talking to middle-aged white guy, cheering on the fact that there's not a middle-aged white guy who's the attorney general of this city or that state. It seems like they would be more self-aware of what they sounded like. It seems weird to me that they're constantly bringing it up. Oh, he is?
He is aware, but his audience, you're not the audience. The audience is of the fellow woke, because that is this phrase virtue signaling, which unfortunately was a good phrase that meant something worth picking out, but now it's this way of slamming people on social media. But there's talk to the tribe, and it is a kind of performance, and it is. Obviously, this can't be the end game for a civilization that gets over racism. I mean, if we get to a future, the sort of future that Martin Luther King Jr. envisioned, where people are valued for the content of their character, it's not because we will have followed this to its logical conclusion and just endlessly done arithmetic based on skin color in every circumstance. No, we'll just cease to care about skin color, right? We won't be taking greater tallies of it and becoming more and more fair across any way you can, slice and dice the pie. You're not going to walk into a hospital and find out exactly how many cardiologists are from Pakistan, or there are too many Jews. It's just that is clearly a moral dead end. We'll just get to a place where skin color is analogous to hair color. I mean, it would never occur to you to wonder how many cardiologists are blonde versus, brunette, right? Or whether the mayor, how long has it been since we've had a blonde mayor? It would never occur to you. And so a post-racial society would be one where we've gotten over this fixation and we simply cease to care about the color of a person's skin. And that if that's the end game, and we recognize we're not there yet, the question is, how do we get there? And the far left, and Michael Moore is, I don't know him personally, but he certainly seems to be somewhere left of me and somewhere near the edge of the cliff there. The far left seems to think that the way there is to care more and more and more about race, right? And it's just, that is just a, obviously, it obviously can't be true unless they have some story about why we will reach some tipping point and then magically cease to care, on some happy Wednesday. And I just don't see that happening.
I'm going to tease this because I got to take a quick break, but yeah, how do we simultaneously care and talk more about race. And then there was the sort of insane proclamation that it's time we had an honest dialogue about race that these people never want to engage in. But I'll tease this question because I had a theory, which is as President Obama was nearing the end of his second term, the folks like Michael Moore, who sort of make a business finding issues and racism, had realized they had to ratchet up their game, realized that they had to get a finer jeweler's loop out to find more racism because we have a black president who just got elected for a second term. So we actually went into overtime versus what I sort of recall in the late 90s or mid 90s, which is little to no conversations about it. But we'll see what you think on that. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with Sam Harris right after this.
Adam's new audiobook is done, and it's fantastically unapologetic.
I'm starting with a warning. I'm not going to apologize for anything in this book. I'm not going to qualify anything in this book. If you don't like something in this book, you can kiss my hairy ass.
I'm your emotional support animal, navigating our all-woke, no-joke culture. Written and narrated by Adam Carolla. Pre-order it now at adamcarolla.com.
Sam Harris is staying with us, Making Sense with Sam Harris, name of the podcast. Every week, new episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the meditation app, Waking Up. So my feeling is this sort of business of race hustling as we move further and further away from the actual racism that we sort of recall from the past, folks are now having to work harder to find it. Does that make sense to you, Sam?
Yeah. There's no question that the forms of racism that people imagine they've discovered, they get subtler and subtler, and that's as it should be. I mean, that's what it would look like to make progress on issues of race. And again, I'm not denying that there's more progress to be made, but let's acknowledge the progress. Many people who pretend to be finding racism everywhere are acting like this is the worst of all times with respect to race. Like, having had a 2-term black president meant nothing, right? That was just, symbolic. And now, things have gotten worse. And, it's easy to see their concern in Trump. I mean, this is why the miscalibration here is so consequential, because, as you probably know, I'm no fan of the president's, and I have almost nothing good to say about him. But what I will say is that many of the charges against him that come from the left on things like, racism are so poorly targeted that they're false, and or they would find racists in other contexts who are clearly not racists, or you're not motivated by racism. And I say this really having no doubt that Trump is a racist. I do believe I know enough about the man to say that, but it's just you have to be precise in making specific allegations, and the left is so hysterical on this topic that precision is almost never what you're meeting here. And so we have to acknowledge the progress we've made and the progress we want to yet make, and the principle by which we would make progress. And again, the principle would be to treat people as individuals and to care less and less about race, right? I mean,
what do you find? I find this so. Dave Rubin said something that just kind of stuck in my head when he was, I think, working for the Young Turks, and he was very, very liberal and very leftist. And he, at some point, he just said he had this realization, which was, how could everyone who disagrees with us be a racist? How would that work? Like, how's it mathematically possible that people disagree with us on every spectrum of every discussion politically? How come they're all racist? And what are the chances? You know what I mean? Basically had an epiphany, which is we can't just call everyone who disagrees with us or this policy or this political idea a racist. And I'm wondering if you play that racist card too often, if it starts falling on deaf ears.
Well, it definitely does, and that's a disservice to everyone who comes up against a real instance of racism and is justifiably outraged over it, right? I mean, it's the same thing with sex crimes. If you call everything rape, right? If a bad joke is also a version of rape, or a glance, an awkward glance, or
even a hand on the thigh at a club.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Not everything is an assault, right?
Yeah, and there are gradations of assault, right? I mean, not every sexual assault should be called rape either. So,
right.
If we can't be precise about what we're talking about, then it devalues the real victims of real injustice. And so I mean the paradox here, or the pseudo paradox, is I think it's true to say that all the racists are on one side politically, or at least all the racists of the usual sort, right? All the white supremacists, none of them were going to vote for Hillary Clinton, and any of them who would vote would probably have voted for Trump. But that doesn't mean that all the people who voted for Trump are racist, right? And that's, but that may be too much to parse for when someone simply wants to have a single reason why our society is so politically divided.
Well, it's interesting. Well, I think it could be parsed if somebody wanted to burn the calories, but I don't think they wanted to burn the calories. So you're saying to Ben Affleck, hey, not all Muslims, or nowhere near all Muslims, are violent or would engage in violent behavior, but a percentage of them are, and that's a big enough percentage to be dangerous. Or I'm paraphrasing. And Ben Affleck is saying to you, just because there's a handful of extremists out there doesn't make that group those people, essentially. But he then, the next day, would probably say all Trump supporters are racist, even though it's the same math.
Right.
In a weird way, he would be a hypocrite, because he would say that to you about Muslims and then make the exact same argument against himself, although unknowingly, about Trump supporters. Yeah,
well, the hypocrisy here is pretty amazing, because you're talking about people who think they care about, let's say, women's rights and equality, but political equality and equality of opportunity between the sexes, but they're totally sanguine about the compulsory veiling of half the women in these Muslim societies, and their forced illiteracy in many of these societies, and the idea that you would criticize this behavior as an advocate for women never occurs to people on the left. I mean, the only way to criticize women in burqas in Afghanistan is to be insensitive to the norms of an ancient culture that doesn't want any of your colonial racist bullshit. And that double standard should be obvious, right? To be born a girl in Afghanistan is to be born unlucky, right? That is obvious. And if I sent my daughters over to Afghanistan for a multi-year internship with the Taliban, where they were forced to live in cloth bags, I would be a bad father, right? So that is something that we can recognize, and we should. I mean, not all cultures have an equal purchase on the basics of human happiness and the norms that allow us to create a society of greater and greater political equality, and we barely have secured those norms ourselves, right? So we can see the direction to go, towards the daylight. And it is in giving people, all the opportunity they can use, and in overcoming our tribalism, right? And what's so deranged about the far sides of the political spectrum, left and right now, is that it's a kind of tribalism that makes conversation impossible, right? I mean, we know what the end goal needs to be here. We need to be worthy of all the freedom we can handle, right? And we want minimal. We want government to intrude as little as possible, but to be truly effective where we need it. And technology is changing this story in impressive ways. I mean, one of the reasons why it's not irrational to worry about tiny numbers of people who believe crazy things, or comparatively tiny numbers of people who believe crazy things, is that it's, with the power of our technology, it's becoming easier and easier for small numbers of people to screw up the world for everyone else, right? I mean, 100 years ago, 15 people could not have brought down a society. Now we're getting to a place where 15 people could do that, whether you're talking about biological weapons. I mean, look, we're all hunkered down in the middle of a global pandemic, losing trillions and trillions of dollars in the face of a comparatively minor virus, right? I mean, this virus could be so much worse, right? And I'm not saying that the lockdown is irrational. In fact, I don't think it has been. I think we should have done it more emphatically and more effectively. But it makes sense to me. But I just imagine what a better weaponized version of a
virus, yeah,
a virus that spreads like measles, but is 10 times more lethal than measles. I mean, that shuts down the world, and that very soon is within reach of honestly, high school students to weaponize. And so we will be tempted to create far more intrusive governments in the face of these technological advances in the fairly near future. And we need thoughtful conversation about all of that. And we will need to figure out what to do in the face of truly crazy beliefs, where people think that you get everything you want after you die, and there's no reason to continue the human project one more minute, right? That's if you get desktop printing of DNA sequences married to that kind of otherworldliness, you have a terrible problem on your hands, and we know this is coming, right? And we're spending our time, with the woke on one side and the people in Trumpistan on the other, arguing about nonsense. And what we need is intelligent collaboration on the 10 most pressing problems that we face, and that's it's the dysfunction in our politics that's making that impossible.
I agree. There's a thought that keeps sort of popping into my head that I'd love to bounce off you. And yes, just to circle back to the folks that are constantly lecturing us about women and women's rights and oppression and so on and so forth, having then no thoughts about Islam and their oppression of women. That to me says maybe they're not as concerned with women's rights as maybe they'd initially spouted off about. But I feel the same way. But there's a thought that I keep thinking, which is it's illegal to punch anybody in the face in this country. And theoretically, we should be able to talk shit about Mike Tyson the same way we wanted to talk shit about Seth Green, the diminutive actor from The Family Guy and beyond. But we still go, I'm not going to talk shit about Mike Tyson because I think if I saw him, he might punch me. And I don't want to be punched by Mike Tyson. And I feel like we kind of do that with Islam. We go, this is America. We have rights. We say what we want. We have freedom of everything. But we kind of go, I could get punched by Islam and I'm going to bite my lip. And so if I go on TV, I'm going to choose the Ben Affleck posture more than the Sam Harris Project. Like, how much of it is just a pure reptilian brain? This guy may punch me.
Well, yeah, it's certainly a factor, and it's a much greater factor in Muslim majority countries, right? So if you live in Bangladesh or Pakistan, or I mean, there are blasphemy laws, and there are atheist bloggers who get hunted down and killed in front of their families in these countries. Just not even for being especially critical of Islam, just declaring their unbelief, their change of heart about God, right? I mean, it's a killing offense in under Islam, and in at least, I think, now 12 countries based on their actual laws and in the enforced laws, to lose your faith, right? And to convert to another faith, or to convert to none. And so there's quite literally no freedom of thought there. And it as it was in the 14th century under Christendom, right? So we were burning heretics alive on street corners in cities like Paris and London, and we did that for a good long while before we realized we wanted the kind of human life you can only get when you stop burning people alive for thought crimes. I mean, we wanted better, a more creative, less stressful set of political norms, and we were right to want those things. And ultimately, the Muslim world will need to want those things, and they'll need to relax their standards of adherence to ancient books written by fairly ignorant people, right? And that's as has happened among Jews and Christians for the most part. And it's I mean, that's progress, but it's just worth recognizing what that progress consists of. It consists of taking the contents of these books less and less seriously. When you can see that God wants you to kill your neighbor if you catch him working on the Sabbath, you pretend God didn't say that, or you ignore it. You don't read Leviticus for more than once a decade, and you skip over that bit, or you develop some reason why it's not worth paying attention to anymore. And Christianity and Judaism have done that to a degree that is hard to achieve now in the Muslim world, and it has to be achieved.
Some final thoughts. I keep saying that there's this growing chasm that may continue to grow, and that we always talk about it sort of financially, the haves and the have-nots. But there seems to be a group that seems to be heading toward meditation, toward diet, toward philosophy or stoicism or many of these other disciplines, martial arts, what have you, this very strong, healthy, positive, physically in terms of like what your diet is, but also what your exercise is, but also what your regimen is mentally. Again, all the things we kind of talked about. And another portion of our society that's eating more fast food and playing more video games per day, and in putting weight on and doing all the sort of negative things that you wouldn't want for your kid or society. And I believe that is going to create this chasm. It's not back in 100 years ago, there was rich guys and poor guys, but they were both skinny, and they both sort of believed in God, and they both sort of raised their kids the same way. Now we're getting further and further apart, and I don't know if we're just going to keep going, or if you've given that any consideration.
Yeah, well, I am worried about wealth inequality, and I have been for some time, and all of the other factors.
Well, this wealth inequality comes along with this as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe it perpetuates it, or maybe it leads it.
Both, yeah.
Both. But
yeah, I mean, there's self-perpetuating. I mean, there's all of the cultural norms that begin to get segregated by class, and I mean, it's not a clear line on all of these things, but yeah, it is true. I mean, things have changed. You take if you look at the wealthiest people in our society now, it's not like an episode of Downton Abbey where you just have the leisured class where they're very idle and they're just everyone's putting on an extra 10 or 20 pounds and it's a sign of how prosperous you are. And no, I mean, wealthy people tend to, for the most part, work longer hours than anyone else now, right? I mean, they're workaholics. They're really into fitness and they're super fixated on the kinds of educational opportunities they give their kids. And, there's a kind of a machinery of advantage that gets turning, and it is across all of these domains. So, I mean, the difference in health between the top 1% and the middle class is enormous, and it's bigger than between the middle class and the poor to speak of the U.S. now. And it's and it's an enormous difference. I mean, it would be analogous to get the middle class up to where the 1% are with respect to health would be an analogous change to curing cancer across the board, right? I mean, it's an enormous difference in health outcomes. So it's I mean, at a certain point, we need to ask ourselves just how much inequality, again, in every respect, in terms of material resources, in terms of education, in terms of just the discretionary time, health outcomes, all of it, how much inequality we're going to tolerate in the society and what the remedy is once it becomes intolerable. And people who are kind of reflexively against redistribution need to recognize that, there's no guarantee we're not going to wake up in a world where there's 30% unemployment in this country, and Jeff Bezos is our first trillionaire, right? I mean, it's and that just makes no moral sense on some level, even if you are the trillionaire, because what sort of world do you want to live in? I mean, do you actually just want a compound ringed by razor wire, and you want armed guards in the Suburban with you as you skulk around the city?
You essentially become Pablo Escobar.
Exactly.
But here's the question. See, I don't believe taking some of Bezos's money and breaking it off or redistributing it is the answer. It's a redistribution of information, or it's as someone who comes from that world, I realize I didn't grow up, in the inner city, but I grew up on welfare and food stamps, and I grew up amongst those people, and it's a mentality. It's like the school system isn't great, but the thing that causes more harm than the school system is the culture of not knowing or not discussing even what achievement is, or what education is, or you get a job, you fight to keep it, work sucks, and then you die. You know what I mean? Like no one ever discussed. We discussed survival all the time. We never discussed thriving. Almost the same way with the diet you're sort of talking about. It was just like getting fed. We didn't care what we ate. We just wanted to get fed. We're in such a survival mode that we never really got into achievement mode. And somehow that information, which is free, needs to be imparted and shared. And that, to me, seems like that would go a long way.
Well, I think you need to ask yourself what the end game is in real success. I mean, so take something like the breakthroughs we will ultimately make in artificial intelligence if we play our cards right. If we just keep making progress and we don't derail ourselves with a global nuclear war or a pandemic that knocks us back into some kind of road warrior hellscape where we can't figure out how to improve our computers anymore. We just keep making progress. We will eventually build machines that are vastly more intelligent than we are. right? And again, this is not assuming Moore's law. It's not assuming any specific rate of progress. It will just eventually happen because there's nothing magical about having a computer made of meat. We can build intelligence into our machines, and we can keep getting better at it. And ultimately, it'll be like chess. I mean, now the best player in the world is a computer, and it will always be a computer. And the computers will get better, and that will be true of basically, you list your favorite modes of human cognition. We'll knock all of those down ultimately. And the consequence of doing that will be to be able to make a kind of intellectual progress and a progress in technology and science that will functionally be just pulling wealth out of the ether, right? I mean, we'll just be pulling it out of the ground. And then the question is what to do with this wealth, right? Now, should all of this wealth accrue to the team at Google that has made this fundamental breakthrough? So you have a few people who are trillionaires, and then we have vast sectors of society where it's not even truck drivers now that are unemployable because we have self-driving trucks. It's software engineers who are unemployable because computers are better engineers, right?
Right.
That's a possible end game for us, and there's some scenario under which this would be nothing but good. It would completely uncouple prosperity from human drudgery, right? Nobody in a world where we're just pulling wealth out of the air. No one should have to work for any reason other than they're doing something they love to do. I mean, there could just be this complete breakthrough into a new ethics of creativity and just a new sense of prosperity, where like literally all boats are rising with this tide, this technological tide, and the only thing that would prevent that is our political inability to figure out how to share this wealth, right? So now, obviously, we're not there yet. There's no guarantee we'll get there. We seem impressively capable of screwing things up in the meantime, but if that's the possible path forward, at some point we need to rethink the ethics and politics of redistribution. And this idea, this sort of Calvinist idea that the only purchase a person has on kind of on a right to exist is to find some profitable work they can do that others will pay them for. Right? Like that's your place in the world. You figure out something you can do that other people want to pay you for, or you're just going to fall through the cracks and you're going to fall so low that no one's going to be able to see you again. I think progress ultimately, social, political progress, is us recognizing that is untenable for a variety of reasons. I mean, just given how much luck is involved in succeeding, in any way at all in our society. Again, you didn't pick your genes, you didn't pick your parents, you didn't author your own intelligence, and you didn't pick even a more superficial things like you and I can make money by having conversations like this. How lucky is that, right? I mean, it's amazing that this is a job for the two of us, but for the fact that podcasting is a thing, right? But for the fact that this technology made it possible to do this, we'd have to find something else to do, right? And there's no guarantee that, like, you change a few things in society, which again, you and I aren't responsible for. All of a sudden, this whole career path goes away, or it becomes, vastly less lucrative, and we have to pivot to something else. And again, the only tools we would use to pivot are things we've inherited in large measure based on just good luck. So it's like the inequality in luck, the kid who gets a head injury at age 4 and spends the rest of his life dealing with that, right? Or someone who loses their parents before the age of 10, right? And they're dealing with those consequences. I mean, it's just a massive lottery. And so progress as a civilization, I mean, not even just speaking for the US now, but just as a global civilization, progress has to look more and more like a disposition to cancel the most egregious disparities in luck insofar as we can, right? So it doesn't make a lot of sense that you and I can have a conversation like this and then go about our day if people are starving to death in Westwood, right? So if there are people starving to death in Westwood, let's figure out how to solve that problem.
Right. That's
and then we
9 miles from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. So, but the truth is the ethical significance of distance is a bit of an illusion, right? So it's like starving to death in Westwood would be so galling that you and I would feel a moral imperative to act. But there are people starving to death in Yemen, say, right now. And
well, we're sort of
arguably we should feel the same impulse to solve that problem.
Well, we're sort of talking about folks you argue with who argue about equality and women's rights should feel that way about all the countries that are being wildly oppressive to women as well, but they don't have that sense of urgency, obviously.
Yeah. So moral progress on some level is a matter of feeling freer and freer in our attention to feel morally implicated just without respect to distance and without respect to national boundaries, and to build more and more creative technical solutions so that it becomes effortless to benefit the people who most need benefiting at any given moment. And I mean that's the promise of a really mature technological global civilization. I mean, whatever the government apparatus is that rides on top of that, it's amazing. To take one example, like I don't know if you heard if you listen to the New York Times podcast, The Daily, but they a couple of weeks ago they profiled this couple who run a restaurant in Louisiana, and obviously the business has been torpedoed by the pandemic, and it just was a very poignant look at the suffering of this couple who had everything was going great, or as great as it could under the circumstances, and then all of a sudden, they just by sheer bad luck, they happened to be in a business that was just synonymous with failure under the conditions of a pandemic. I mean, no matter how successful you are as a restaurateur, if no one's going to restaurants, you're in free fall.
Right.
And so I found this podcast very arresting, and I just realized I could make a material difference in these people's lives by just sending them some money. Now that there are not a lot of norms around doing that, just sending strangers money, but I felt the impulse to do it, and I realized I could reach out to the producers at the the Daily Podcast, and they pointed me to a GoFundMe page that they vetted, and it felt absolutely great to do that. Now, I think we should take the friction, the moral friction out of doing things like that more and more, and we'll all feel better in our abundance, because again, it's absurd. This is pure luck that I happen to be in a business. I mean, I'm in my main gig at the moment. I mean, I also write books, but my main gig is my podcast and my meditation app. Both of those things are thriving under a condition of absolute economic calamity for most people, right? Based on pure luck. It's not to say that I don't work hard. I do. I'm basically a workaholic. But the fact that I'm in an industry, the fact that I'm not running a restaurant, is pure luck. And and so you have to, that should be morally significant to people. I mean, we have a burden to spread the luck around, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll talk again. And I have many thoughts about luck, and we'll debate them slightly, but sure. I completely agree. And I don't know. I was thinking about God. I was talking to Dr. Drew about was it Barnhart? Who Barnhart? I'm trying to think of the German theologian. I was just talking about Frederick Barn. Oh God, skipping my mind. But anyway, I had. Dr. Drew sent me a quote about Friedrich, Barn. Say it.
Bonhoeffer?
Bonhoeffer, sorry.
Friedrich Bonhoeffer, the Christian.
Friedrich Bonhoeffer. Yeah, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, he was hung 2-3 weeks or hanged 2-3 weeks before Hitler killed himself. That's bad luck. That's bad timing. The war's ending, and one of the last things they're going to do is hang you, Right. And I do think about that stuff. And anyway, I'd like to continue this conversation, Sam. I appreciate you being generous with your time, and I hope you can come back and we can just do an hour on the subject of luck.
Yeah. Well, great to meet you over Zoom.
Yeah, I agree. Making Sense with Sam Harris is the podcast, and the meditation app is called Waking Up. I'll let you go, Sam. I'll take care of a little business here, and we'll pick this up again sooner than later, I hope.
Yeah, great. Take care, Adam.
Nice meeting you. First, Tommy John, working from home. Well, yeah, a lot of us are working from home these days. Tommy John knows it's got its ups and its downs, and that's why they got new improved underwear, making it more resilient. It's now 2 times more durable. And right now, for all customers, you get 25% off site-wide. Upgrade to the softest, most breathable fabrics you've ever worn. No wedgie guarantee, no visible panty lines for the ladies. The loungewear is it's decadent. It's so soft. It's so scrumdiddlyicious. And the loungewear is great, but the underwear is the best. And now that's 2 times more durable. I don't know what your excuse is. They stand behind it 100%. Best pair you'll ever wear. Or it's free, guarantee. Tommy John, no adjustment needed, right, Dawson?
Hurry to TommyJohn.com/Adam and get 25% off your order. That's TommyJohn.com/Adam for 25% off orders. See site for details.
All right. Nashville Zanies coming up June 12th and June 13th. Stand up there live. I don't know if we're doing a live podcast, but we'll do 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. We'll figure that out. So tickets available there coming up on June 12th and 13th. I'm your emotional support animal. Well, pre-order that at Amazon.com and bookmark us and click through and pre-order that audiobook as well. It's coming out June 16th. And you can go to our YouTube page and see all the stand-up you want. Until next time. Oh, Ed Calderon coming back again. Knows everything about Mexico. Interesting guy. Until next time, Adam Carolla. For Sam Harris and Gina Grad and Bill Bryan saying, mahalo.